Call to order the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation Commission meeting this 5th day of April 2021. Rhonda, if you would, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brewster.
Here. If you would, please stand for our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Russ Horton. Father in heaven, we're thankful for life resources. Way home for all here, and above all things, we're thankful for that. All desires through you. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. JD, if you'll do our introduction of guests, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today we have with us, probably going to be more of a fixture than a guest, but Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell also on the agenda. Thank you for being here. Our new Cabinet Secretary. And then Director of the Foundation, Rick Grunman, is here as well. There he is. That's it.
Thank you, JD. Next item on the agenda is we're going to have an update from Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell. We certainly welcome him to our commission meeting. Hope to see him at many more in the future. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Real honor for me to be able to be here. Guests and staff, thank you for giving me a few short minutes. Certainly answer any questions that you have as well. But I think one of the first people that I called when I was campaigning for office, frankly, was probably some of you sitting in these seats as well, was JD, and he would tell you that story. I ran on a tourism platform and small business economic growth platform as well, which they go hand in hand, as you all know. But JD was one of the first people I called because I knew there was huge opportunities when it came to working with the wildlife department and the Great Oklahoma Outdoors, and we really weren't doing a whole lot of that with our tourism department. There's a big void there. And we, over the last 2 years, have worked on a number of projects together, and we plan on working on many projects together moving into the future. The ROI that we've seen with the Oklahoma Fishing Trail is, I think today in the country, not just regionally, but in the country, is one of the most successful tourism trails in America today, returning about a 90-to-1 ROI. So for every dollar the Department of Tourism spends on telling people to fish in Oklahoma, we're getting at least $90 back. That was during a pandemic, by the way, where we actually decreased a little bit what we were spending. The Wildlife Department is investing where they can as well. So that's a small example of, I think, some of the things that we can do. I've talked about a number of things moving forward. Our state park system continues to see rapid growth and updates. You know, we passed a state park bond, 2 sessions ago now, about $45 million that we're infusing into our state park system. We're actually spending much more than that because we have CapEx money that we get through our Department of Tourism as well. Those things employees are demanding those things of their employers today. And if we're not promoting the outdoors, if we're not promoting the assets that we have in the state, then it's very difficult for us to lure businesses to any part of our state as well. And again, we hear those things from employees and employers looking at the state of Oklahoma. So we will continue to look at what other states do. Best practice work. Jerry Winchester and I over in the Department of Tourism will continue to do that. But we really look forward to this partnership. Myself listening to you all, and vice versa. It is Secretary of Tourism, Wildlife, and Heritage, the new title. I'm still actively working on the brand of the state as well. That has both sometimes. I need to know about it so that I can advocate for you all at the state capitol. That's now a role in my secretary role that I'll be actively involved in. Ken Wagner will still be involved as well in his role. But if there are things that I need to know about, both positive and negative, please let me know. And we'll go about doing that work down at the state capitol that needs to be done here. With that, thank you for giving me a few minutes. But I guess I can swing it open for any questions if that's appropriate.
Sure.
If anyone has any questions for me. Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Pennell, I just wanted to tell you, been crappie fishing these past few weeks down on Lake Eufaula, and I think since you've become Lieutenant Governor, my crappie numbers and poundage has increased. So did a fantastic job.
Bruce came to my quail hunt, which now, you're now officially all invited to the Lieutenant Governor quail hunt, which we host at the beginning of first Saturday in February. Most of the time is when that killed all the quail out there that day. Yeah, we are always up for going crappie fishing.
That's right.
Always. I grew up on Fort Gibson Lake, and we've got a place at Grand now, but yeah, those were my best memories, favorite memories growing up, was fishing in the state of Oklahoma. I know a lot of Oklahomans feel that same way, hunting or fishing. Something, as you all know, very special. I would say almost magical in a way, those memories that are made. So it's a blessing to be able to be in this space and be able to promote it, because we're now seeing a whole lot more Oklahomans growing up in the states they can be proud of. And a lot of opportunities here, so hopefully they want to stay here and raise their own families here. It is all connected. It is absolutely all connected. Legislators are starting to realize that as well. Yes.
One other thing, Lieutenant Governor would like to formally extend the same reciprocating invitation for turkey hunt in southeast Oklahoma. We've got a pretty good population down there, and Roger says, make sure you knew.
Well, thank you for that, and I will be.
Good. But just let us know when you're down.
We do have the Lieutenant Governor Turkey Hunt, which, as you all know, is a Department of Commerce event. But again, it's a perfect example of that, of how the great outdoors can be a front door to economic development. We bring in site relocation firms and CEOs from all over the country, and we put them in 7 or 8 different communities around the state, and let them shoot birds, which we like to do. And it's been a wildly successful event over 38, 39 plus years now. And Wildlife Department is involved in that. We appreciate that partnership. We had to unfortunately cancel the event last year. I told them I don't care where we are in this pandemic, we're not canceling the turkey hunt this year. So thankfully, we're in a completely different place today. And we have a lot of great site relocation, site selection reps coming in, more than we had 2 or 3 years ago. So it bodes well for the future. So if you all want more information about that, JD, I'll get you that. You have JD.
I've got it.
Schedule.
Yeah, I've got it.
Send that around. Yeah.
I'll be helping entertain at Okemah.
Good. Yeah, I'll be kicking things off there live and in person in Okemah, and then 7 communities in 48 hours, I think.
I've got another question or comment, I would say. I would just say, from time to time with many of the bills that are introduced by the legislature, some are friendly to the Wildlife Commission department. Some of them may not be so friendly. And it's always good to know that we have another friend at the Capitol to stand with us sometimes. So I appreciate that.
Not only a friend, but also Lieutenant Governor. So that might help too.
Okay.
They'll take my phone. Not that they wouldn't take Ken's phone call, of course.
He did help me this session work out a deal on a Bigfoot bill that you may have heard about. So
I'm surprised I didn't have my Bigfoot joke.
thank you for that. Yeah.
Who would have thunk? But listen, you go down southeastern Oklahoma, and listen, they're leveraging Bigfoot in a big economic
Yes.
It's really well done, really well done. I'm not just, I mean, it's first class. So
Yep.
go check that out.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Do you have any other questions, anybody from commission?
Make a comment that we certainly appreciate all your good work in enhancing the image of Oklahoma, and we look forward to working more closely with you. So thank you.
I appreciate that. You know, I don't think we should accept mediocrity in our first impressions department either. And if you have crossed over into Oklahoma recently or visited any of those welcome centers, which now have all touchless bathroom fixtures, which I think is important. The public restrooms in the middle of the country probably should be fixed first if we want to stop global, germ spreading in the future. So we're getting a lot of, national press on that too. And now each and every state now is using COVID dollars to address public bathroom facilities. We should have done that a decade ago. But we will continue to engage there. And again, public-private partnerships. There's ways that the private sector and our tribes can be involved in these efforts too. So yeah, there'll be more announcements in the future there too. I appreciate that. Thank you all so much. Look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next on the agenda will be JD on presentation of awards. JD?
Actually, we do not have any this month. We don't have any this month. It's been a while, I know.
Next item on the agenda is the consideration and vote to approve, amend, reject, or take other action on the minutes of the March 1st, 2021 regular commission meeting.
Mr. Chairman, there was a slight change that I got with Rhonda and made it. I just want to make sure that they reflected that the Rules Committee had approved and recommended those rules. So that was the only addition. So
Okay, motion?
I make a motion to approve
Second?
the minutes.
Any further discussion? There being none, roll call.
Commissioner Brewster. Aye. Commissioner Barwick. Aye. Commissioner Hughes.
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis. Aye. Commissioner Zelps. Aye. Commissioner Dillingham.
Aye.
Commissioner Holder. Aye. Commissioner Mabry.
Aye. Next item on the agenda, Director's Report, JD.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you've got 3 reports in your packet as usual. And the first is Brittany Preston's report from things that are happening at the federal congressional level. You'll note that there was an additional COVID relief package passed. It had a few wildlife things tucked in it, not really much that we asked for, which was, we're still seeking some match relief and some other things, but it does have some stepped up, some money for stepped up enforcement and efforts to curb wildlife trafficking, Lacey Act violations, that sort of thing. And so you'll see a little bit of that in there, but of course, the bulk of that package is for income relief for citizens of the United States and businesses and that sort of thing, infrastructure programs, so on and so forth. On the state legislative front, Corey could not be here today because Senate Ag and Wildlife Committee is going to be convening here in a bit, and they will be taking up, among some other measures, the House bill is now crossed over to the Senate side that would empower the commission to be able to set the types of licenses and the fees for those licenses, and so that is still moving through the session. We continue to try to address some concerns that have been raised along the way over balance of power, I guess you could say, questions. So hopefully that will be successful getting out of committee today. I believe it's coming in with some amendments, so it will, even if it passes the Senate, have to go back to the House for acceptance of those amendments. But it is still making its way through. Just looking at the list of legislation, which is, I believe, also in your packet, you'll see a couple of additional things there. One that removes some pretty archaic trapping restrictions out of statute so that the commission can address it by rule and keep things up to date with modern trapping technology. It also takes the squirrel season out of statute and moves it over here for the commission to address by rule. Squirrel, ironically, is the last animal, wildlife species that remains in statute. Of course, all other seasons and bag limits are set by the commission, but so that would seek to move that. Our tax checkoff, wildlife diversity program, income tax checkoff has to be renewed. It sunsets every 3 years, I believe, so this is a renewal year, and that is making its way through. There's one piece of legislation dealing with fencing. We've been working with that author, Representative Strom, to make sure that it's something that we could live with at the end of the day, and we believe as it stands now that language is something we can live with. Then again, I mentioned the House Bill 2214 is up in Senate Committee, Senate Ag and Wildlife today regarding licensing authority. There are a couple of court record bills making their way through that are really request bill from the court system that don't really affect us. In fact, might even make things easier for us when it comes to those sorts of things. There are also a couple of resolutions, one on the House side, one on the Senate side, showing support for and highlighting the importance of public lands to Oklahomans and recognizing their importance to the state's economy. So Representative Talley has House Resolution 1002, that's one of those. Again, Senate Bill 47, another request of the district attorneys and state court system that is has no effect. Income tax checkoff. There are a couple of bills by Senator Murdoch, Representative Dempsey, one dealing with more wide open night hunting of coyotes, the other seeking more wide open hunting of prairie dogs. We're still trying to figure out if they're trying to exempt everybody from having to have a hunting license to shoot prairie dogs. It seems that is his intent, but of course right now landowners and their lessees do not have to have a hunting license for most game species, including prairie dogs, so it would just exempt everybody else from needing a hunting license if that's the way it works out. But we're still working through, about halfway through the session here, seeing how that's going to end up. The Senate version, Senate Bill 774, that grants the commission license authority, we may see that one go away and everybody focus on House Bill 2214, which does the same thing. Senate Bill 776 would restrict the commission. I think we talked about it last meeting, restrict the commission from purchasing land unless it's been advertised and marketed for at least 6 months. And so that is still making its way through the session, past the Senate, now over on the House side. Maybe up in House Committee as early as Thursday, so we'll see how that goes. Senate Bill 812 is another one of those court-requested bills that includes game violations. Senate Bill 839 passed the Senate, moves over to the House, may be up in House Wildlife Committee Thursday. We'll see, but it prohibits game wardens from placing or using game cameras on private property without permission unless they have a valid warrant, which is standard practice for our wardens anyway, so not a huge impact. Senate Concurrent Resolution 5 encourages schools to incorporate our department's approved hunter education course into the middle and high school curriculum. So it's a resolution, so it's really just kind of an encouragement. It's not a legal mandate, but it was nice to see that support. And I think that's an effort that comes from the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, that they're working at their state legislative caucuses in a lot of states, but we definitely welcome that, of course. And then again, lastly, you've got a couple of Senate resolutions regarding recognizing the importance of public lands to the state's economy, recreation, heritage, quality of life, that sort of thing. So that's what's going on the state legislative front. Before I get into, yes.
we can get the licensing requests that we want to do?
You know, I think there's a good chance that the rate we're going, I hate to jinx it, but most of the people that we're able to talk to and explain how the process works, where even if the commission does it by rule, it goes through a really thorough public participation process where we've seen before, depending on what you're throwing out there, if people are agitated, we'll get hundreds of pages of comments to consider, so we'll know when it comes to pricing, which tends to be what most people are nervous about. If the public doesn't like it, we'll know there's a backlash at that point. Plus, rules can always be disapproved by the legislature when they come over there, and we've had that happen to us since I've been here. So I know that works as well. So if we get a chance to explain it, people tend to get a little more comfortable with the idea. So.
I know it's been for us for a number of years.
Yeah, and the thing that we stress to them over there, for us, it's not even as much about the price of the license as much as it is the complexity of our licensing. The real aim here is to be able to clean up the 150 different licenses, tags, and permits that we offer, and really streamline it and make it much more understandable for someone. And then also, based on, you recall the Southwick study that we did a couple of years ago now that we'll be dusting off again to help us inform decisions. But sportsmen are really interested in combo packages of licenses. And so if we can combine several of those privileges together into an attractive combo license, it's not just hunting and fishing combo like we have now, but maybe several privileges, then they're willing to pay a little more for that, but they get a lot more privileges rolled up in it too. So again, we're trying to stress to people, this isn't because we want to jack the prices up on licenses. It's because we first want to have a good package of licenses and then get the price right that will be attractive for people to buy it.
On the pricing, and we all for sure want to keep things as affordable as possible, but when and if adjustments are ever necessary, it's a lot better, in my estimation, to do things in small incremental versus waiting until you're so far behind that you've got to take huge step ups, and that's not good for the public either. So, and then being able to look at our WMAs and do those with excellence, where you have really nice facilities and signage. And we have fantastic WMAs, but we just need to always look at raising the bar and doing things with excellence that will allow the user experience to be better. So this kind of helps us get there too.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're exactly right. Not being able to raise prices in over 15 years means we're overdue for kind of a jump, which is not the right way to have to raise prices. So.
Drafting process too, that language, because is it broad enough to create new categories of fees, or are we going to be hamstrung about what we have right now? And for example, one of the states that I put in for draw hunts every year created a habitat stamp. Well, that habitat stamp was like a 10% increase to non-residents. Mm-hmm. So, do you think we'll be able to do something like that if we wanted to in the future?
Yeah, the language as it's worded now gives us a lot of flexibility it basically strikes and repeals most of our licenses out of statute, and it authorizes the commission to do it. So that's the ideal situation for us, because at the end of the day, what we see happening is combining a bunch of these 150 different things into a lot fewer packages. Plus, if there are additional things that we, think we want to do, we'd have the ability to do that too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Thank you. So in the director's report, you'll see there, calendar items. The North American Conference was held virtually this year, back in March. I will point out that Wednesday is the state Scholastic Shooting Sports State Shooting Competition, which is held out at Banner at the Trap Shooting Association course. I always look forward to running out there and and being humbled by the kids across the state that are able to shoot trap like none other. Friday, I'm due to go down for the 75th anniversary of the Denison Dam celebration. The Corps of Engineers organizing a celebration there. Lieutenant Governor Pennell mentioned it. Next week is the Lieutenant Governor's turkey hunt in all the communities except for Hugo, which will have to wait till turkey season opens in the southeast. And then put this one on your calendar, even though it'll be after the May Commission meeting, May 12th, we are scheduling a legislative fish fry over at the Capitol. So if you can join us on that day, hopefully weather will cooperate. We'll be cooking and serving outside typically on the west side of the Capitol. I think that's where it is again today. I see nodding heads. So already mentioned all the legislative stuff. We were able to present to the Veterans Caucus, and the Game Warden Association provided breakfast for them on March 25th. We were able to take our new Wildlife Committee Chairman, Representative Ty Burns, and the Governor's Chief of Staff out on a bear den visit this year. We only had 2 bear dens that we were able to utilize this year on public land. So second year in a row we had fewer bear dens than ever, but at least we were able to make those work. Over the next few weeks, I know Corey and staff are busy, Nels and Wade helping out for sure in scheduling various fishing trips with interested legislators and others, so that'll be happening. Finishing up the 2020 game harvest survey now, so you'll see a report on that shortly. We have spoken before about a potential project working with the foundation, Chickasaw Nation, to restore wild elk to the western Arbuckle Mountains. We did have Sooner Poll complete data collection, polling both statewide Oklahomans as well as those in the area. Found pretty widespread support for that project. We are now starting to go out and have conversations with some of the big ranchers in that area to kind of gauge their support, answer their questions and concerns and that sort of thing. So stay tuned for more on that. Fish stocking continues, even though the trout stocking will be wrapping up this month probably. Barry, Ken, yeah, it's kind of when we start tapering off the trout stocking. Alligator gar sampling continues. Lots of other surveys. The Watonga Dam repair project was awarded over $2.2 million, so that'll be occurring over the course of the summer. So have to let the water down so that can be completed, but hopefully we'll have it completed and be able to have that thing at full capacity for the first time in 5 or 6 years. I don't know, it seems like it's been forever. Lots of other work going on with boating access, fishing access, electrofishing, on and on. You see lots of habitat projects going on with cedar trees, brush piles, piping, fixed substrates, getting ready for the fishing season. I&E division, we're going to get some updates today, for at least one from Kelly on the diversity inclusion work that's going on. Also some interesting things continuing to happen on the marketing front, again with that customer relationship management system that we have, being able to do phenomenal marketing like we've never done before. Completed the grand state shoot for archery in the schools. It happened over a 2-day period. Fewer teams participating in the in-person shoot due to COVID restrictions, but had 131 teams also participate in the virtual state shoot. So lots of great archery competition continuing to happen. Speaking of the marketing front, I got an update this morning that total on the Raffle Trips, which were instituted for this year, up to over 68,000 worth of sales on the various raffle trips. So that's been phenomenal, and we expect it's really going to take off because we'll do a lot of cross promotions right now as we have the controlled hunts open now for business from now to to mid-May. So as people check out on their traditional controlled hunts, they'll get a pop-up that says, hey, you want to throw in for one of these additional raffle opportunities for an extra $5 or something. So, just flipping through here, lots of interviews, lots of good social media. Women's History Month, Gina did a great job on Women and Wildlife social media series. Rick can mention this here in a bit, probably in his foundation update, but staff's been working with him on a couple of fronts, updating. I know Don working on the redo of the Return of the Wetlands booklet, which highlights kind of the old original document to get folks interested in Hackberry Flat. So since there's renewed interest in that, also working with OG&E on some potential volunteer fishing and hunting opportunities. So I'll save that for Rick to update everybody on. Rack Madness, of course, was held virtually this year, but social media engagement increased 119% overall that week as a result of Sarah and a number of others' efforts. Wildlife Division, busy with burns and trying to get some winter disking in to encourage forward production, sunflower production for dove season coming up. The turkey winter flock surveys were completed. If you saw the Gobbler report that went out last week, you know numbers are down again, especially in the west. It does seem like some of the better opportunities may be central, just east of central Oklahoma, and sounds like that comports with some of the youth hunters that I've seen that were successful over the weekend, as well as reports from Commissioner Gaddis over there. So, but definitely down in the west. Ag leases have been advertised, getting areas ready for grazing season. Talked about the bears. Wildlife Services conducted aerial hog control on 2 wildlife management areas in that special hog eradication program as part of that USDA pilot project that we have. They successfully removed 87 hogs in one day at Sandy Sanders and 275 in one day at Waurika. So, Bill will cover this more detail, but staff has been spending a lot of time entering data into the GIS portions of our new WMA wildlife management plans. So, getting dashboards up and running so that we can better prioritize and fine-tune the work that's going on those WMAs. Finalize the acquisition of the Adair County property, and you'll see there in law enforcement, game wardens have been busy with fishermen and getting ready to be busy starting tomorrow with turkey hunters. So I may go spend some time out in District 7 tomorrow and see what's happening in the far west. But we've also hired 5 new game wardens that'll be starting next Monday, and so you'll see there where they're going: McIntosh, Muskogee, Adair, Delaware, and Cimarron County. Most of the wardens are fully vaccinated at this point, with a few stragglers, but they were able to go in with the first responders. So still a lot of online meetings happening, and that may continue in the future. Depending on what the meeting is, it's made it a lot more efficient for folks to gather from across the state, whether it's game wardens or anybody else for that matter. And some of the equipment that was ordered is starting to roll in, including a couple of boats coming in at Keystone and Broken Bow. So with that, I know a few things that have been popping on the foundation front. In fact, a lot of things have been popping, but since Rick is here, might ask Rick, but after questions, to give us an update on that.
KD, real quick, too early to know whether on the federal level, the administration's plan for public works dollars, pretty significant. I think about $2 trillion that they're planning for on shovel-ready type projects. And I don't know if we should be planning for that. I know we already have a lot, but I think about Hackberry Flats. I think about our fisheries, dams, improvements, things like that. That we ought to kind of be somewhat table ready or prepared to submit if that does happen to pass.
Yeah.
So that we could take advantage of that.
You're absolutely right. In fact, AFWA, the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, our national organization, asked all of us to compile at least some rough estimates of how many projects, what types of projects we think we could have ready within 6 months, 12 months, or at least get them rolling, or at least get the funding encumbered. And then they rolled up a lot of that information. Now, that's about a year ago that we did it, but it still should be pretty accurate today as well. It's still uncertain to us if this latest COVID package with all the infrastructure financing is actually going to be available for fish, wildlife, and recreation infrastructure. It seems really heavy on bridges, roads, navigation, waterways, that kind of thing. So I think everybody's still trying to sort out if we can grab a piece of that pie at all. Yeah. Good question, good point. Any other questions for me before Rick gives us an update on the foundation?
JD, I got one question.
Yes.
On OLAP, have we done an assessment of how we're doing with the OLAP as far as customer participation, and can that be
Yep.
reported to us next meeting?
Yeah, we can get you that, Russ and Bill, if we can kind of get an update on OLAP. I know we're up over 80,000 acres now. I don't know if we have the ability to check participation in that right now, but if we can, we'll put together what we can by next month.
Okay, that'd be good.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Thank you.
Rick?
Thank you, JD. Commissioners, just a quick update on a few of the things the foundation is working upon. Under Commissioner Zelps, our events committee has been reviewing. We were looking at doing an event in concert with the Wildlife Expo. When we started meeting with outside sources, we found that it was much more cost-effective for us and should increase participation, that we are going to have the Oklahoma Wildlife Conservation Foundation's Wildlife Conservation Hall of Fame event, the first Hall of Fame event. It'll be honoring John Grondike, will be the first honoree, who we think is quite appropriate. We have settled upon Friday, October 29th, if you'll put that in your calendars, Friday, October 29th, and it will be held at the new convention center in Oklahoma City at the Omni Hotel. Those of you that support Oklahoma State or OU, there are home games the following day. So if you choose to come into town, you can stay in Oklahoma City that night and maybe a shorter drive back. But we look to have a lot of fun. We have hired one of the best, if not the best, event coordinators in the area to assist us with that. We are running full speed ahead on that. We will be reaching out and looking for any help that we can get for sponsorships, purchasing tables, and we're also going to have a limited but high-profile live auction component with hunting, fishing trips, and special experiences that we'll be putting together. Some of those we hope to tie in with high-profile Oklahomans to be part of those trips, which serves for multiple purposes. To obviously, some people like the star factor. Some people, just want to give to a good cause, which we're hopeful for. Some of them want to go on to some special type of outdoor event, whether it's hunting, fishing, birding, whatever it may be. But we will be working on that and we'll be reaching out to you, and any ideas that you have, we're looking forward to all the help and assistance we can get on that. Any questions on that event? We do expect it to be an annual event going forward. We think it's very appropriate, and there's a lot of great candidates to be recognized for their work in wildlife conservation, land stewardship, et cetera, and we think that's one of the key messages and obviously the focus of the department and the commission. Yes, sir.
Rick, will there be a formal invitation going out to people, to commissioners about?
Absolutely.
activity.
We will be we're putting together mailing lists. Anybody that you think you would like to be invited, we're going to be sending out save the date cards. It's been a very challenging time for any philanthropic event because of COVID. And what we've seen is that all of the charitable philanthropic events that have been scheduled for the last year and a half have been moved to the fall of this coming year, or they've been canceled. And so we'll be up against other events, and everybody else will be, but we think this is kind of our second opportunity to make a first impression on people, and we're going to be focused on having a lot of fun, focusing on what our mission and the department's mission is, and just having a good time. Thank you for that question. You also heard, want to thank Micah and the INE team and everybody. They've been very helpful as we work to gear up for fundraising for Hackberry Flat to bring water back to that world-class waterfowl and wildlife area. We have been doing research. The chairman of the fundraising for the foundation, Reagan Siegfried, and I have been working and putting together a proposal that will be going before the foundation board from a grant writing perspective that we think will really scale up and really start moving the needle on the large-scale grant writing while we're also doing our first event. So we've got a lot on board. We don't want to be everything to everybody, and we can't do too many asks at the same time, but we think it's really important we've gotten great momentum. We've had almost 1 million social media impressions since July 1st when I started, and it's not because of me, it's because of the efforts of everybody else, but we've really focused on the events we've done with foster children, with youth hunting, with the naming of the building here. A lot of other events have really moved our social media platform. We're probably up pushing almost 400% of the people that are subscribed to the Oklahoma Wildlife Conservation Foundation social media platform, and we hope to move that forward because that's the way the world is moving. We'll then start upgrading our website and other things to try to capture that. But those are the major things that we have going on at the moment. If there are any other questions, happy to answer them. If not, we'll get out of your way and let the train keep staying on time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Next item on the agenda is a presentation of the February 28th financial statement. Amanda Stork. Amanda?
First try. I was like, first try.
Oh, it's not on the screen.
Good morning, Commission, Commissioner, Mr. Strong. I have for you today the financial statements for February, ending February 28th, 2021. First up is the combined balance sheet for February 28th. For the end of the month, our total liability and fund balance is $476,205,327. Of that, total liabilities is $20,608,801, and that's compared to last year's total liabilities and fund balance of $415,772,000. This is the December report, so you guys aren't going to be seeing the right report. I was like, these numbers aren't matching, but
like,
that
they're
one,
not matching up.
it says December, so it looks like the wrong one got loaded into
You have
the
the right
PowerPoint.
one in your packet,
Yeah.
right?
So just pay no attention to the ones on the screen, because I don't know.
Just seeing who's paying attention.
Yeah, I was like, that doesn't match. So total liability and fund balance is $415,772,653. The next report in your packet is for trust funds for February 28th. The total expendable trust balance is $32,986,296. The non-expendable trust fund balance is $95,431,688. The pension trust balance is $134,309,932. The DC trust balance is $5,061,804 for a total of $267,789,720, compared to last year's balance of $228,149,912. The next report in your packet is the combined statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. Total revenues for the month ending February 28th is $36,366,795. Total expenditures of $36,452,485, leaving deficit of $85,690. So the total fund balance for the end of the month is $54,179,046, and that is an increase of 69% from last fiscal year. Page 4 in your report is trust funds. Our pension trust interest is $17,760,523 for the end of the month, February. And our total operating revenue is $25,511,319. Operating income of $19,677,860. And then that total balance ties to a previous report of $234,803,424. And the last report in your packet is for wildlife contributions for February of a total of $125,095. Total, yes. Mm-hmm. And you, we haven't drawn any of the expendable trusts this year yet. We haven't had to as of to date. We have some budgeted that we did in the mid-year budget revision, so that there's a chance we will be drawing that before the end of the year. So the increase in the stock market investments, you know, we lost a lot, and then it rebounded quickly by the end of the last calendar year. And we also have additional revenues from license sales. It's not, that isn't making up the whole amount, but we did have a lot of increase in license sales, and just federal funds that we're drawing. So a combination of all of those things.
Yeah, I knew that might come up. Russ, you probably are the best one to answer. This predates me too, but it was kind of a settlement for prairie chicken restoration, right? Hey Russ, I might ask you, since we're streaming live, grab a mic if you don't mind. It's on.
Yeah, the Comanche Pool Prairie Resource Foundation got a donation from a wind power company, so that's non-federal money. Well, they're giving us $125,000 of that we can then use to match with PR funds for a total of $500,000 worth of habitat work. they gave it to the foundation, and then they gave the bulk of it up in Kansas. That's where the bulk of the Prairie Pool is, but we got $125,000 for work in Oklahoma. Yes, that was a restriction. It's about the northern half of Woodward and Harper County, and extends just over into the western edge of Alfalfa County as well. It's a pretty good sized area. I mean, real good prairie chicken country, which that's what the intent is to use the money for. I couldn't tell you, but it was considerably more than that. I think it was close to $500,000 altogether. So they kept about 3/4 of it and gave us a fourth of it, which is roughly mimics the.
That's about the land mass, or the mineral
mimics the land
mass.
area in the 2 states.
Amanda, on the combined statement of revenues, you've answered this before, and so I apologize that I can't recall the answer, but on the miscellaneous income, what all goes into that category?
There's a lot of items that go into that, but NERDA is the big chunk that's in that right now. So the other items are small, and normally that balance isn't high unless we get NERDA money, but that's NERDA funds.
Thank you.
And I assume it was bigger in this statement just because we were just closing on the Barren Fork property, which was using a big chunk of NERDA money, probably, yeah.
And I also have license sales information for March, if you guys are interested in that.
Sure.
Okay. So for the month, number of all licenses sold is up 22% for March and 11% year-to-date. So that's a rebound from the bad weather month we had last month. So non-residents are coming back after the start of the pandemic last year, but sales are also surpassing 2018 and 2019. And our total lifetime licenses are up 40% and 14% year-to-date. Lifetime fishing and lifetime combos are up big in March, 115% and 91%.
Wow.
Stimulus, yeah. Nell said people are spending their stimulus checks on lifetime licenses.
Well, it's a great investment. Yeah, we haven't looked in a while, but I think we're getting where 75% of our hunters have a lifetime nowadays. So it's the overwhelming majority of them, yeah. Good report, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Is for a motion? I move to accept. Second. Discussion, roll call.
Commissioner Barwick. Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Gaddis. Commissioner Zelps. Commissioner Dillingham. Commissioner Holder. Commissioner Mabry.
Aye. Next on the agenda is a presentation on a new initiative to recognize the diversity of hunters, anglers, and wildlife enthusiasts through the agency's communication channels. Presentation by Nels Roderfeld. Nels?
Commissioners, I'm here to introduce Kelly Adams, who is a UCO Bronco, by the way. And Kelly began her career with the Wildlife Department as an intern in the I&E department. And she recently celebrated her 10-year anniversary with us. She really worked hard on multimedia, and in particular built the department's social media empire. The gorilla that we are is because of Kelly and her persistence in pushing for getting involved in social media platforms, and then really being involved in social media platforms. Kelly recently promoted to Information and Education Supervisor, and at that same time, she also led the charge to change our name from Information and Education to Communications and Education. That's a focus on just a reflection of our role, not just to put information out there, but to be a service to people, to help provide that two-way communication with them. And it seems maybe minor, but I've told her it's one of those foundational type things that 20 or 30 years later, right, people will be like, hey, that was a really meaningful change, and it set a mindset and a dynamic in place that will be there for years to come. And Kelly has also, even prior to being selected as a supervisor, been very involved in a number of, we call them leadership activities within the agency. In particular, she's heavily invested in providing leadership for our strategic planning. And as part of that, I'm going to let her talk to you about diversity and inclusion.
While she's coming up, I'll point out, apropos to Pennell's earlier statements, that she's been our point person coordinating on the Oklahoma Fishing Trail stuff for the department side. So getting signage out to marina owners and working with tourism on the updates to the brochures and the websites and on and on and on and on, right? So
That's right, on and on and on.
Thanks.
It's fun. Good morning. As you guys know, my name is Kelly Adams, and I am the Communications Supervisor. Diversity and inclusion is a hot topic, I'm sure you all know. And growing our community of hunters and anglers is critical for our agency. It's so important that our leaders made it a goal of the strategic plan. They identified objectives and mapped out strategies. So today, I just want to talk to you about what CNE is doing to welcome a diversity of hunters and anglers to meet Goal 4 of the strategic plan to grow our community of outdoor enthusiasts. So representation is a critical first step to be more inclusive. If I can't see it, I can't be it is a common sentiment among historically marginalized people, and we recognize the importance of representation. And in CNE, we have been purposefully working to be more diverse in our content. In addition to that, we launched Project Mountaintop in 2019 with the purpose of engaging people from diverse backgrounds who want to take a leadership role in the outdoors. And this effort allows us to focus on more meaningful and authentic engagement and inclusivity. And you guys can see here, these are just a few of the people that we've had the privilege of working with, and I would like to share a little bit about each one. On the bottom left there is Wayne and Candace Hubbard. They are husband and wife and co-creators of Urban American Outdoor TV. This is a television show with the sole purpose of spreading the message that the outdoors are for everyone. And they travel the nation speaking at national conferences like CIFWA on the importance of diversity and inclusion. And next week, they're actually meeting with the new Secretary of Interior, Deb Haaland. And we are lucky enough to take them on a paddlefish trip right after that. Nels and Wade will be in a boat with them, and hopefully some great communication will be happening, and we can learn more about what we can do as an agency to help get behind their message. Next is Alyssa Bowen. You can see her holding the second largest typical white-tailed deer taken with a muzzleloader in Oklahoma. She's also the only Oklahoma representative and first representative in Oklahoma for Artemis. It's a program of the National Wildlife Federation whose mission is to empower sportswomen across the United States. We featured her in our blog, and we'll be also featuring her in our magazine. And we're also, through her, partnering with NWF, but I'll get to that a little bit later. Next is Adrian Ramirez. He's a young man who went viral last spring. He likes to record his fishing trips, and he was reeling in a fish, I think at Keystone Dam, and it was a nice-sized fish. He looks over, and he realizes that this kid standing next to him had yet to catch a fish. And so he handed his rod and reel to this kid, and this kid got to reel in his very first fish, and he was elated, he was excited, and this video went viral. So we caught up with Adrian, and we learned that mentorship is something that's really important to him, and so I'm excited to share his story later this summer on Outdoor Oklahoma TV. And then next, mentorship is also really important to Al Velasquez. That's a picture of him and his son. They hunted so hard last year trying to get their first deer. They weren't successful, but they learned a lot through their mentor. And I met Al, and we talked about how important mentorship is, and we also started talking about how important diversity and inclusion is. And he was able to connect his employer, OG&E, with the Wildlife Foundation, and they actually have a fishing clinic now scheduled at Horseshoe Lake, I think next month. So these are just a few of the people that we're going to be working with to tell their stories through Project Mountaintop.
Kelly, I have a question before you move on. I just gotta ask this question.
Okay.
Does she really have that buck up on the couch?
No, that's the,
of a
that's the back of a
pickup.
truck, yeah, that's a pickup truck. You know, what's really cool about her is, she hunts public land and especially OLAP. They're not really, they just moved here. They live in Alva, and her and her husband, they hunt together, it's the cutest thing, and they love hunting OLAP, but that actually was taken on private property, so. No, you're okay.
No, it's good. Let's get that clarified.
So we're also working on a limited English proficiency plan to ensure the needs of our non-English speaking constituents are represented. And this started as the result of a civil rights audit, but it has grown into a committee of people who want to be sure that we are communicating with our non-English speaking constituents. And so this is a screenshot of a text message exchange between Sarah Sutherland, our social media coordinator, and a Spanish-speaking constituent. He was interested in deer hunting this last fall and couldn't find, the regulations. He didn't understand when his license expired. So she was able to send him to the Spanish website of Go Outdoors Oklahoma, and that helped him out a lot. So we're also looking into providing our e-regulations in Spanish. Several other states are doing this. Some states do their printed regs in Spanish, some do just their fishing, some do just their e-regs, and I reached out to our law enforcement division to see if there was even a need, and there are needs, but they're very localized. For example, Guyman. That's an area that would be served well with Spanish regulations, so that's something that we're looking into. So how are we engaging these people? This spring, we are kickstarting 2 new efforts. Both are the result of a grant from the RBFF, and it's critical through both these events that we get these participants beyond the typical introductory, welcome into fishing, and we get them to where they're proficient. So the Mobile First Catch Center is actually a trailer that is equipped with enough fishing equipment to provide up to 150 people fishing instruction, and we're going to use it to help expand fishing instruction to novice anglers living in urban areas. And the next one is the Vamos Apescar fishing clinics. The purpose of this one is to provide ongoing fishing clinics for approximately 5 Hispanic families in Oklahoma City. And through both of those events, we'll be able to track participants and then provide them consistent engagement to connect them to these next steps to ensure that they keep on fishing. So that's the whole point of both of those. And before I get into the next thing, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of background, just a little bit of data that we have. Obviously, I'm going to talk about women next. So here's some numbers for you. We are about on par with the national averages for female license holders. We are slightly above for fishing at 29%. And in 2020, we saw a 45% increase in female license sales for recreational licenses and lifetime licenses combined. So clearly women want to hunt and fish, but what do they need from us to ensure their participation continues? To find out, I'm going to be working with Betsy and the Human Dimension staff to conduct female surveys and focus groups to better understand the needs of women in our agency. And I want to just share an example for you. Siren USA is a gun manufacturer. And instead of telling women to get a youth model or a gun with a shorter stock, they actually looked into what are the differences between men and women, and they developed a full line of shotguns specifically for women, and they're the only gun manufacturer to provide a full line of shotguns for women. So when I talk about the needs of women, that's what I'm talking about. There are differences, but what are they? How do we keep them continuing? So I'm excited to find out more. And then lastly, here's a glance of some partners that we've been working with. OKC Latina is helping us provide the necessary resources to Hispanic families participating in the Vamos Apescar events. They are very excited to work with us, and we are very excited to work with them. Cherokee Nation is helping us implement our suite of outdoor education programs into their schools. Through the NWTF, we're working to train Oklahoma women in the outdoors, or AKA WEDO instructors, to be more proficient in various types of hunting. If you've ever attended a WEDO event, they do a lot of like basket weaving, jewelry making. They do some step shotgun training and some handgun training and archery, but there's not a lot of hunting, and that was the original purpose of it. So we learned that a lot of these instructors, you know, they're not hunters themselves, so we're working with them to make sure that we can, you know, reintroduce hunting curriculum into the WEDO events. And similarly, we're also working with Bo, Becoming an Outdoors Woman. It's a program of the Tulsa Campfire, and we provide resources for them at their annual event. And then lastly, Artemis, I mentioned Alyssa Bowen. She's our Artemis ambassador. And so we're working with the National Wildlife Federation to provide resources to Artemis and help promote their program to female hunters and anglers. Just last month, Casey, Harriet, and Emily Long were experts for a Artemis event all about turkey hunting, and it was a really good turnout.
I might just point out real quick that the OKC Latina Vamos a Apescar project and the mobile trailer thing that you discussed on the mobile catch center, I was trying to remember the name for it, were both funded through grants that Kelly and her team solicited and got funding for. So you just talk about budget impact. They've been actively pursuing these grants that are out there that we've never tapped into before, especially when it comes to our ability to tap into these communities that haven't been traditional customers of ours. So kudos to you all, and great work getting this stuff off the ground.
Yeah, and Colin Berg, his team also had a huge part in securing those grants from RBFF.
And I think the Vamos a Pescar one is funded through the George W. Bush Foundation too, so another tie there.
That's right. Okay, so the last thing I just want to say about this is the quantity of voices and the diversity of perspectives within conservation will result not only in more support, but also more hunters and anglers, and that's what we're here for. And then a shameless plug of my nieces and nephew there. Do you guys have any questions? Great, thank you. Agreed, yes. Yes, it's great. Thank you. Your support means a lot. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Good job, Kelly.
Obviously, a very good program. Thank you, Kelly and Nels, for that update on the program. Very good. Thank you. Next item, 12, presentation of wildlife management area planning and modernization. It's by Bill Dinkins. This came up as a result of some of the commissioners' input and concerns about some of our WMAs, what we might do to update and modernize those. So through the strategic planning process, Bill's here to kind of give us an update.
Yeah, and I might just add on to the front end of that, kind of a segue. Kelly did a great job of talking about one of the big strategic plan priorities, which is how we can increase our relevance to diverse audiences and non-traditional customers of the department. If we're going to grow hunting and fishing in this state, it's going to be increasingly important for us to tap into that. And so you saw some of the great work that she's done with leading her team in that regard. And so there were a couple of priorities and teams that came out of the strategic planning process, really focused on, and it all ties together. So when you talk about, especially when you talk about providing an opportunity for those minorities and other non-traditional customers to get out and hunt and fish, they really don't have land or a pond or something to be able to do that on. They really rely upon us to be able to provide an opportunity for them to tap into public hunting and fishing opportunities more so than anybody. And so it becomes increasingly important that we think about the different ways that they perceive the outdoors and the different ways that they experience the outdoors as we think about providing amenities to our customers and that sort of thing. And so I know Bill's strategic planning team, Kristen's strategic planning team on rolling out the welcome mat. It's all going to be rolled up here in this presentation. But all of those things are rolling out of the strategic plan. And I know Bill's gonna show sort of the logical process that we're going through. And when it comes to this, it can get really complicated and really resource intensive fast when you're managing so many WMAs across the state. So we knew we had to cover the basic block and tackling stuff first, which is, do we have a good inventory of our WMAs and what they offer? And do we have that digitally where we can utilize it, GIS, to manage it and pass it along to all the staff that come along and use it to prioritize our budget and on and on and on. So with that, Bill, take it away.
Thank you, Director Strong. Great introduction. I would like to say that, back to Kelly's presentation, when y'all sent me to the National Conservation Leadership Institute, that topic right there was number one in our discussions. And this is a nationwide problem, and so great opportunity for us to expand, and I appreciate, Kelly's work on that. So, Chairman Mabry had asked several questions, and one of them was a handout we just provided, and that was WMAs listed from largest to smallest, whether we owned it, whether we lease it, whether we license it, or whether it's under agreement. So we passed that out, and it looks like INE also provided a atlas, hard copy atlas as well. So he had several other questions for me, which I'll get into in the presentation, so bear with me. So the strategic plan identified some of the vision for the future of the agency and possible action items. There were 4 main goals, several objectives, and many more strategies for each identified in the strategic plan. So for this presentation, a couple we're going to zero in on are Goal 1, Objective B, Strategy 4 is for ODWC managed properties, conduct an inventory of habitat improvement and infrastructure need through preparation of management plans. Update on management plans. Staff has prepared the written plan is completed for all our WMAs. We are currently still working through the GIS and dashboard layers with our staff. As you can imagine, the amount of, or the volume of information to be loaded into a computer on different layers so that we can go back and look at things like control burning or fence building or roads building, whatever it is quite large. So we did run into a few issues just because of the size of that data set, but we are making progress. So regional supervisors and area biologists are obviously part of the process and are going to be responsible for identifying, prioritizing, budgeting, and implementing the management plans.
I might point out too that they've also got to find time to actually fix fence and burn and put in food plots and do stuff while they're also trying to get the data input. So there's a little bit of a balance of time.
So another goal, objective, and strategy being worked on is infrastructure modernization and upgrades to enhance the public use experience. Staff are reviewing the recommendations from the various committee reports and evaluating, prioritizing, and budgeting as needed as part of their WMA plans. So before we dive too deep into the strategic plan, Chairman Mabry asked, a very basic question is, how can our constituents, how can our users find basic WMA information? So this is from our screenshot or whatever of our website. If you go to our wildlifedepartment.com, click on hunting, click on where to hunt, then it drills down into the regions there in the lower left box. You can do it by quadrant and then get to a specific WMA. What you'll find if you do that is, say we get down to James Collins WMA, for example, the profile information that pops up on the screen, nearby weather, biologist and game warden contact, area description, driving directions, you can read the list there, camping and facilities, and a link to the map and regulations. And I just put this James Collins one up here. We're not going to go through it, but we'd be glad to get with you, kind of like Chairman Mabry and I did on the phone the other day, and we can meet with you individually. If you want to take a deeper dive into that, we'll be glad to do it after the meeting. So Commissioner Dillingham asked me about Well, what about an app? Well, we have a great app. Our Go Outdoors Oklahoma app is one of our options there. It is free and available on Android and Apple iPhones. Very similar type process. If you click on that bottom button down there where it says Hunt, you get the next screen to the right, and if you go to Where to Hunt, it's linked to our website, so it's exactly the same steps that we just went through on the website. So either on a mobile app or on a desktop, they have that information available at their fingertips. Okay, so when planning, prioritizing, and in budgeting strategically, it's good to know what is important to our constituents. We asked these questions as part of the Game Harvest Survey back in 2019, and as you can see, not only is managing the resource our top priority, but also what our constituents think we should spend the majority of our funding on. So the graph to the left there, out of $10, they believe that $6.49 should go towards managing fish and wildlife and their habitats, and then the other $3.51 should go to improving area infrastructure. But we understand infrastructure is also important to our constituents, so we asked them, what infrastructure is important to you? And as you can see, roads are clearly number one concern, followed by signs, camping areas, shooting ranges, restrooms, and then parking lots. Probably not coincidentally, many of these items were also identified in the various strategic plan committees. So just real quick, a reminder, we have 86 wildlife management areas across the state, almost 1.4 million acres that we manage either own, lease, license, or through agreement. We also have 16 department lakes and 4 hatcheries. So some examples of things identified as priorities and what action is being taken. Again, roads were number one on the list, and a picture to the left is not a good picture of what we need to see when a constituent drives out on a wildlife management area. So daylighting roads is one of the things the staff has been working on. To the right is Toka Wildlife Management Area, current project. We also have several other projects going on. Washita Arm, Texoma to the left is a road project that's being worked on, as well as the Yorman Wildlife Management Area to the right. And so daylighting these roads is important, we've learned, because it allows sun to get to them and dry them out, for one thing. It keeps brush off of the vehicles, and also increases our capacity for prescribed burning by using the roads as fire break. So Okmulgee WMA, early stages on the left, and then Lexington WMA, finished product on the right, is one of our better examples there. You can see the good base there on the road, gravel base. We've got a good right-of-way there that we can burn off of, and it also obviously is providing good foraging habitat for different wildlife species. Signs was number 2 on our list. Signs are always a challenge due to vandalism. They get stolen, they get shot up, but we do have a pretty standard color and design there, and this was the new Sandhills Wildlife Management Area. But we do have, I just want to point out, we have highway signs, we have entrance signs such as this, boundary signs, camping signs, shooting range. So there are a lot of signs to be taken care of on these wildlife management areas. Russ and I made a tour up to Northeast last week, a week or so ago, and unfortunately the sun kind of washes this out, but this is our new Sand Boys Wildlife Management Area. I know you probably can't read that sign, but I thought it was a good picture to show not only the entrance sign there, but we have a boundary sign, which again, I'm sorry you can't read that, boundary fence, and in the background you can actually see our brand new shop building. Here's a picture of a campground sign at Toka. Most of our major campgrounds do have signage like this, but we do realize we have multiple primitive campsites scattered throughout WMAs that We could probably use some more signs to designate those, even though they are designated on maps. So this is our James Collins campground. One of the nicer ones that we have. This one actually has water and a restroom. So the picture's not the best, but our technician house is way back in the background there. I don't know if you can pick it up or not. So we think that's important, as well as this WMA has one road in, one road out. So this kind of facility works great on this property. Probably not going to work as well on one where it's remote and we have nobody living there. So we do have several designated primitive campsites scattered throughout WMAs. And then we have areas like Three Rivers and Hodubby with regulations allow camping within 50 yards of open roads during hunting season. So there is no designated camping site on some of our WMAs. So numerous factors have to be evaluated when building this kind of infrastructure, and one being location next to other facilities like Corps of Engineers, state parks, and I've already mentioned the remoteness concern with vandalism. But we do realize we need to expand campground size on some of our WMAs.
Bill, you might just reiterate on that one, why it made sense to have kind of upgraded restroom and camping facilities there, because the employee housed on the site is right there as well, and kind of police and monitor the activity. Yeah,
that's correct. And actually that restroom to the right, and I've got another picture coming up, you'll see it a little better, has been there over 20 years. So it's one that's been there and been working based on those factors you pointed out. Shooting ranges was next on our list. The picture is actually of the Lexington range that several of us attended for a commission meeting. Just to summarize, we have 6 completed. You can read the list there. 17 in progress. So shooting ranges is also on our list of priorities, and we are making good headway on those. This is the actual James Collins range. While we were over there, we took this picture. Brand new range. Great, ADA accessible, and no doubt getting lots of use, especially that close to McAllister.
Bill, question. On those shooting ranges, if you've seen one, you've seen them all, or are they designed differently, or they all look pretty much the same? Or?
Generally, they're the same specs, but kind of like what I skipped over this on the roads. There are some things, topography or other things that have to be considered, you know, how it lays out, but I think in general, they're basically the same design. So. Total? Yeah, total, when I say total, I mean compliance and all the work that goes into it, around $300,000 per range.
in addition to that being the third priority for our constituents when we survey them, shooting ranges, I'll remind you that we've got more lucrative, I'll say, grant money now that the Target Marksmanship Act was passed by Congress, so we can actually spend 90% federal dollars, 10% state match on shooting ranges for the most part. That's
the new ones. All the existing grants are locked up in 75-25, but as we add new projects, they are
Okay, so this is a little better picture of that restroom at James Collins Wildlife Management Area. Also point out that on some of the areas where we don't have this nice of infrastructure, that staff does usually bring in porta potties for controlled hunts and special events like that. So this is one that a new one that we're actually planning on putting down at Atoka Wildlife Management Area. If you've been down to that area, we have a residence there, our shop building is there, and Blue Stem Lake is also there. And so Fish Division has agreed to fund this new restroom there because it's going to serve not only the hunters and users of the WMA, but also for our anglers there using Bluestem Lake. So here's an example of one that is on the books to be completed.
Is that the one, basically the one we have at Blue River Public Fishing Area? Yeah.
Yeah, and the price tag on that one is around $58,000, just so you know. You know what it's made out of, Barry?
Bill? Bill?
Yes.
As you and I discussed earlier, we talked about having those type of facilities pretty much have to be around a facility residence where an employee lives. For one, if you want to have water, generally the residence has water, and also to keep down the vandalism, it bodes well to have it close to a residence where somebody could keep an eye on it as well, so.
The one that James Collins did, I'm not sure about this one, I assume it does. Yeah. So a big part of staff's evaluation, as I mentioned earlier, includes looking at nearby facilities, like this core property at Fort Supply. In this case, I don't know if y'all can read that, but to the left there is camping with RV hookup, restrooms and showers are available on this core property. The green line is actually our WMA boundary. So just pointing out as an example here, you know, we have over 25 WMAs on core properties and more that are near core properties, that this is the kind of thing that staff will have to evaluate financially, if it makes sense, to put a restroom on, you know, a WMA where we may have a facility fairly close to us that hunters and anglers can use.
No,
Is
I
that-
think
did
it's
it say-
more
did
than
it say
that.
It said primitive camping, didn't it?
No, there's primitive
Oh,
restrooms
it
too.
did?
It's probably
It's-
pit toilets or something, not,
Yeah. I'm guessing. Yeah. So parking areas made the list as well. This is our Deep Fork Wildlife Management Area renovation project. This is one, Commissioner Barwick, you might recognize that when we toured it a while back, it was not up to par. And so it's currently in the renovation stage there, expanding it and getting some gravel on it, so. Candy Creek Wildlife Management Area, newly renovated, being well used on the opening day of archery season. So, I thought it'd be important to work in equipment upgrades. Real briefly, it is in the strategic plan, and through the NERDA funding, we were able to upgrade equipment on several WMAs. You know, as you can read there, we were able to get 18 skid steers, 11 tractors, and a few other implements. So that was a big boost for upgrading equipment. So get back to habitat and wildlife, you know, which is really our primary objective. You know, we have to have the equipment, obviously, to be able to do the work, but just I felt it was going to be important to point out a couple of examples of the great work staff's doing out there for habitat, and this is one on a turkey roost reclamation site at Pack Saddle. Obviously, the picture at the top left is way overgrown. They went in there and removed everything but the roost trees there. So this is another example over at Hayburn. Fence line was choked full, top left. And they were able to go in there and thin it out a little bit, actually put a gate in there and access road, and then they can burn off of that road as well. Some more tree removal, clearing right-of-ways down at Pushmataha Wildlife Management Area. There's one of our skid steers in action. Again, just keeping those right-of-ways open. You know, in particular important for Pushmataha is you know we have elk there, so trying to improve the grass component as well as brood rearing areas, and again, great fire breaks and good for keeping the roads dried out. The other thing I thought it was important to mention that, you know, we have a lot of WMAs where the facilities in general are kind of just outdated and wore down, like the lower left picture there. So this is one of our new storage buildings that we were able to put on Sam Boy's Wildlife Management Area. This is the one at Arbuckle Springs, and of course you got to have a secure security fence around them, unfortunately, to try to protect our assets. So most of them do have some kind of security fence built around them. So, you know, to wrap up, strategic plan has identified several things for us to consider, including trying to reach and welcome a more diverse user group. I also want to note that several activities currently happen on WMA, such as birding, photography, hiking, just to name a few. And just staff will continue to evaluate items identified in the strategic plan and look for opportunities to modernize and upgrade WMAs as part of their planning. Prioritization is going to be key as well as budgeting strategically. So I think we got a good start on it, and I just thought it was important to show some of the good work they have been doing, and there's going to be a lot more work to come. But that's all I have for my presentation. So if you had any other questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Yes, sir.
Bill, I think that signage is extremely important. It's fairly new to the area. Down Worcester, maybe right over it, and then really develop signs that are hard. It can be vandal. So
Right.
to make it more difficult, they're more likely to destroy the truck.
Right. I would say, I mean, common sense would tell you, yes, Commissioner Brewster, but also know that ODOT has certain criteria on those highway signs. They have to be breakaway, you know, obviously if there was an accident, because we've ran into that before as well.
But if you're on the highway,
right.
This was off of a county road.
Okay,
there,
yeah.
And it was,
Yeah.
in the case of somebody accidentally
Right.
doing it.
Right. Yeah, some of those, well, the Sandhill sign was a real nice wooden frame, but a lot of them are just pipe frame. And for whatever reason, like you said, those wooden ones, you know, they'll go out there with a chainsaw or a pickup truck or whatever. I don't know what it is about them, but try to tear them up. So we have shifted to pipe frame on some of those others more remote like that.
What if we put steel spikes in the ground around it? That really weak, man. That really weak, man. They're pretty accelerated. They put in
Yeah, and I know law enforcement's helped with some of that. Speaking of cameras, I know they've used cameras on signs and gates, particularly in southeast Oklahoma, because of vandalism. Yeah.
People out there, it says consult your regulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a QR code or something
Well,
you could scan.
Yeah, that's where I was getting ready to go, is that was identified in the strategic plan, and obviously I could give you a 3-hour presentation if you wanted, but that is one thing that was identified was QR codes. Go up there and scan it, and then yeah, it pops up, regulations, maps, yep. Yes, sir.
So, thank you for the report. It was very helpful. On the strategic planning, do we have a prioritization of CapEx projects? I know it's a endless need, never enough resources, but do we have kind of a prioritized list of, for the next 36 months, what we want to do where in priority order?
Well, I'll take a first crack at that. I mean, for what I was put in charge of, which was WMA planning, you know, all that information, that's why I presented all that backstory information about what our constituents thought was important, what was in the strategic plan. Now it's going to be up to us and our leadership down through the biologists to prioritize, you know, based on that. It's not necessarily one size fits all. Like I said, there's certain areas where bathrooms, like we showed you, will work, and there's other areas that it makes no sense to waste our money. So, unless the director has a different opinion, I'd say it's going to be up to the leadership of each division to roll down through, you know, the biologists who are in charge of the area biology, or the area budgets, excuse me, and then ask for those add-ons as they see fit. That's kind of how we've approached it.
Yeah,
and I understand and appreciate that, but do we have an actual list of what those are in kind of priority ranking yet?
we do have what we have for now, which has been how the agency has historically budgeted, which has been kind of a baseline budget for all the divisions, and then they prioritize and add-on capital projects on top of that. But out of the strategic plan came a priority that we need to budget more strategically, which is exactly what you're talking about. And so we're poised to be able to do that this year, starting with a zero-based budget and really working with the divisions. I know Fisheries has one too. They've got their priorities laid out for capital improvement projects that need to happen when it comes to hatchery renovations and that sort of thing. And then when it comes budget time, we look at how much of that priority list we can bite off this year, and the rest of it, you know, waits for the outcoming years. And Wildlife Division has that too. But what's coming out of the strategic plan gives us an opportunity to fine-tune that and do it much better, much more strategic. And it starts with them getting those WMA plans digitized, GIS, full inventory of all of their infrastructure, and then they can add to that a roll-up of the infrastructure needs, both repair as well as new stuff, within those WMA plans that ultimately, can't do it right now because they're still in the process of data input, ultimately, in my mind, allows us to roll up all those infrastructure needs that are out there, and then allows us to sit and prioritize it. But we do it now. It's just a little less data intensive and informed when we do it now. Barry, do you have something to add?
Those capital expenditures, we realize that we need to first probably get those outlet structures and dam structures up to par, and you know, then the other things will follow after that. We also have priorities hatchery properties, and we're spending a lot of money on the just getting structure.
Yeah, and Bill probably has a similar story. As much as we'd like to start ticking off projects that provide some kind of newer amenities at a lot of these properties, we've still got a backlog of just basic infrastructure needs out there that we're still chewing through. And that'll be ongoing. I mean, at some point you just have to maybe set aside some money to do some kind of new stuff. And you saw some pictures of that, some new bathrooms and some new signage and that sort of thing. But yeah, I look forward to, this will be our first year of budgeting strategically, starting with a zero-based budget and really building in priorities based on what we know now. And then once those WMA plans are complete and their staff have been able to input their priorities at the ground level, they'll really be able to roll that up, whether it's a WMA or a public fishing area or department lake, all of those things.
I think it'd be great to have, for the commission to have a, 3-year look forward or a 5-year look forward on. There's always going to be other things that come up that weren't in that priorities list, but, for planned capital expenditures, here's what the next 5 years looks like for each of those.
Yeah, good point. And we've got those working lists, so maybe we can put something together like that. We will be looking at something like that for this budgeting process, so we can share that with the commission.
Well, we know from our surveys, like roads are pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right, roads, signage, and we're already throwing a lot of money at shooting ranges, which was number 3 on the list. You're gonna see a lot more of that going on out there just because we've got this more attractive pot of money for it. Yeah. They're gonna be, what, 3 years out is the maximum one, so between now?
Yeah, we have, clients all the way out to finished construction, and those, like the last grant, is not scheduled to end for another 3 years. So we've got them staggered, so we're not trying to do 10 or 12 in any one year. We're trying to do 3 to 5. The compliance has been a struggle, and,
We're chipping away on that.
the trust is working fast, we can work on that, but, I think realistically, we're probably, 4 years out to have shooting ranges at all 17 of the ones that are being worked. Talking about environmental assessment, there's an EA process, which in and of itself can take a year. Basically, you do have to do, public comment and review for endangered species and.
It's the full NEPA review.
Going to the federal grant requirements, basically. And we do engineering, so we do have a standard package, but you still have to put that standard package in each site. Like Bill said, there's topography differences and there's some other differences. Years, maybe, realistically 4 years, the ones that are on the books. And then we try to add, as part of the capital expenditures process, again, we're looking at, the newest ones are now into the 90-10. So, we have to try to continue to build. Isn't it, it's amazing, right? $30,000 in state funds for a $300,000 range,
Like that's a lot of our issues has been. Hey, at least you know who were there. Like, we're gonna do something really nice, we're gonna have to be able to survey.
Right. No, that's an option. I know that Lexington range, there was great concern about that one. And a couple things went into that thought process. We were hopeful that by putting in a really high-class range there, people would just take a little bit of ownership, a little pride in it, and not just trash it up like they used to. I know law enforcement put an emphasis on it and patrols it pretty regular. It's a way, if you've not been there, our headquarters, the range is all the way around, almost on the back side. It's not right there by the headquarters. So it's remote. It's right off a county road. So it has a lot of potential for vandalism, but knock on wood, as far as I know, it's been very little. And people are, I guess, prideful, taking better care of it, which is what we were hoping. Yeah.
We put trail cameras up, try to hide them, hide in a tree somewhere. We've had a little bit of success with that. Wildlife guys have done some of that as well. But as soon as those pictures are made available, and then you can see
I agree.
Amen. Yeah, that's, and our constituents agree, our customers agree when you survey them, and they say if I were to spend $10, I would spend 70 cents on your habitat work and 30 cents on the amenity side. Yeah, it takes equipment and FTE to get it done. Yeah. Speaking of FTE, Micah reminded me too that on the shooting range side of things, because we have such a influx of projects and this 90-10 money available, we're working to hire and you all had already approved this in the budget revision, a half-time shooting range coordinator, half-time boating access coordinator, which is another pot of federal grant money that we have to provide better boat docks and that sort of thing. Now, staff would say we got enough work in both of those areas to warrant an FTE for each, but I said let's start with one devoted to them both half-time and see how that works.
Thanks for pointing that out. I was going to mention, that's why I was referring to Nels, because shooting ranges have been under I&E's purview to this point, and once this new person gets on, they'll take over that role of developing shooting ranges with my staff. So the other take home for me, Chairman Mabry, is regular updates. I've heard you loud and clear. We need to provide better updates to commission for projects.
Bill, I think,
we'll try to do that.
Discussion you and I had about these is that commissioners are concerned about infrastructure, the way things are progressing with the department. Sometimes I think often you guys are doing those projects, but we're not aware of it, and we get asked by the people in our districts, what's the latest on the shooting range, or are they going to update any infrastructure with camping or roads, that type of thing. It might be good that, from a standpoint that we would receive maybe a quarterly report, either in written form or from you, Bill, or whomever, kind of telling us what's the latest on projects, major projects that you have going. I think would be very informative.
Yeah, and when you mentioned that to me, my thought was we're already working together, chiefs and I, to roll up a monthly director's report, and so we might make sure that when we roll up those monthly director's reports that we're emphasizing not just all the busy work that's going on, but what's happening, what's the latest on these higher priority projects that we discussed today.
Along the same lines of that would be perhaps seeing what the priorities are going forward.
Right.
For us to see that as well along the same time.
Yeah.
Because obviously you guys have got a lot of projects. I think there's how many, 83 WMAs across the state of Oklahoma, and there's a certain amount of work, I'm sure, that goes on daily on every one of those. But I would just say that major projects that are going on, we would maybe like to have an update there. Yes.
Another big advantage is when we complete the plans, you could have copies of all of those.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Good. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item 13, discussion of the appraisal and/or purchase of certain real property located in Harmon and Haskell counties, which the commission by a majority vote may decide to discuss in executive session.
He moved, he seconded.
Second, discussion. There being none, vote, please.
Commissioner Brewster. Commissioner Barwick. Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Gaddis. Commissioner Zelps. Commissioner Dillingham. Commissioner Holder. Commissioner Mabry.
Aye. So we'll adjourn for the moment.
Yeah, well, I think we can stay in here this time, actually, if y'all don't mind, just because we don't really have visitors. Except
Fishing.
for our foundation director, and he's not really
Hunting.
a visitor, so staff can just...
Wildlife management, resource protection, habitat conservation, public outreach, and education.
It's what we do. It's what we live for.
Simply put, conserving wildlife literally means the wise use of wildlife. And that's at the root of everything we do. Oklahoma is one of the most species-diverse states in the nation. Making sure opportunities exist for hunters, anglers, and all those who appreciate wildlife is not only our job.
It's our passion.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. From sunup to sundown, and sometimes all night long. The employees of our agency are relentless in their dedication to a job well done. The science behind wildlife conservation is constantly evolving, and our biologists are leading the way with groundbreaking and cutting-edge techniques that the entire scientific community benefits from. If that's not enough to make you proud, then consider this. We've been doing all this since our agency's birth in 1909, without using a dime of taxpayer money. That's because the Wildlife Department is designed as a user-pay, user-benefit agency. It's sportsmen and wildlife enthusiasts who pay the bill for wildlife conservation in Oklahoma. Revenue from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses make up the majority of the agency's budget. There's also another unique way that outdoorsmen contribute financially. Each time someone buys a gun, ammunition, fishing equipment, or fuel for their boat, a small portion of the tax they pay at the register is used for wildlife conservation. But hunters and anglers don't just contribute financially. A long time ago, we recognized that sportsmen are our most effective management tool. Shaping regulations and making sure everyone complies to them has played a major role in bringing many species back from the brink of extinction to unimaginable numbers. As much as the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation has accomplished, we are positive our agency's best days are yet to come. You can see it on our faces. You can feel it with your hands. And you can hear it on the landscape. You'll find us working hard to make your state's natural resources the most healthy in the land.
We are.
We are.
We are.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. Fishing, hunting, wildlife management, resource protection, habitat conservation, public outreach, and education.
It's what we do.
It's what we live for.
Simply put, conserving wildlife literally means the wise use of wildlife. And that's at the root of everything we do. Oklahoma is one of the most species-diverse states in the nation. Making sure opportunities exist for hunters, anglers, and all those who appreciate wildlife is not only our job.
It's our passion.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. From sunup to sundown, and sometimes all night long, the employees of our agency are relentless in their dedication to a job well done. The science behind wildlife conservation is constantly evolving, and our biologists are leading the way with groundbreaking and cutting-edge techniques that the entire scientific community benefits from. If that's not enough to make you proud, then consider this. We've been doing all this since our agency's birth in 1909, without using a dime of taxpayer money. That's because the Wildlife Department is designed as a user-pay, user-benefit agency. It's sportsmen and wildlife enthusiasts who pay the bill for wildlife conservation in Oklahoma. Revenue from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses make up the majority of the agency's budget. There's also another unique way that outdoorsmen contribute financially. Each time someone buys a gun, ammunition, fishing equipment, or fuel for their boat, a small portion of the tax they pay at the register is used for wildlife conservation. But hunters and anglers don't just contribute financially. A long time ago, we recognized that sportsmen are our most effective management tool. Shaping regulations and making sure everyone complies to them has played a major role in bringing many species back from the brink of extinction to unimaginable numbers. As much as the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation has accomplished, we are positive our agency's best days are yet to come. You can see it on our faces. You can feel it with your hands. And you can hear it on the landscape. You'll find us working hard to make your state's natural resources the most healthy in the land.
We are. We are.
We are.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. Fishing, hunting, wildlife management, resource protection, habitat conservation, public outreach, and education.
It's what we do.
It's what we live for.
Simply put, conserving wildlife literally means the wise use of wildlife. And that's at the root of everything we do. Oklahoma is one of the most species-diverse states in the nation. Making sure opportunities exist for hunters, anglers, and all those who appreciate wildlife is not only our job.
It's our passion.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. From sunup to sundown, and sometimes all night long, The employees of our agency are relentless in their dedication to a job well done. The science behind wildlife conservation is constantly evolving, and our biologists are leading the way with groundbreaking and cutting-edge techniques that the entire scientific community benefits from. If that's not enough to make you proud, then consider this. We've been doing all this since our agency's birth in 1909, without using a dime of taxpayer money. That's because the Wildlife Department is designed as a user-pay, user-benefit agency. It's sportsmen and wildlife enthusiasts who pay the bill for wildlife conservation in Oklahoma. Revenue from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses make up the majority of the agency's budget. There's also another unique way that outdoorsmen contribute financially. Each time someone buys a gun, ammunition, fishing equipment, or fuel for their boat, a small portion of the tax they pay at the register is used for wildlife conservation. But hunters and anglers don't just contribute financially. A long time ago, we recognized that sportsmen are our most effective management tool. Shaping regulations and making sure everyone complies to them has played a major role in bringing many species back from the brink of extinction to unimaginable numbers. As much as the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation has accomplished, we are positive our agency's best days are yet to come. You can see it on our faces. You can feel it with your hands. And you can hear it on the landscape. You'll find us working hard to make your state's natural resources the most healthy in the land.
We are. We are.
We are.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. Fishing, hunting, wildlife management, resource protection, habitat conservation, public outreach, and education.
It's what we do.
It's what we live for.
Simply put, conserving wildlife literally means the wise use of wildlife. And that's at the root of everything we do. Oklahoma is one of the most species-diverse states in the nation. Making sure opportunities exist for hunters, anglers, and all those who appreciate wildlife is not only our job.
It's our passion.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. From sunup to sundown, and sometimes all night long, the employees of our agency are relentless in their dedication to a job well done. The science behind wildlife conservation is constantly evolving, and our biologists are leading the way with groundbreaking and cutting-edge techniques that the entire scientific community benefits from. If that's not enough to make you proud, then consider this. We've been doing all this since our agency's birth in 1909, without using a dime of taxpayer money. That's because the Wildlife Department is designed as a user-pay, user-benefit agency. It's sportsmen and wildlife enthusiasts who pay the bill for wildlife conservation in Oklahoma. Revenue from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses make up the majority of the agency's budget. There's also another unique way that outdoorsmen contribute financially. Each time someone buys a gun, ammunition, fishing equipment, or fuel for their boat, a small portion of the tax they pay at the register is used for wildlife conservation. But hunters and anglers don't just contribute financially. A long time ago, we recognized that sportsmen are our most effective management tool. Shaping regulations and making sure everyone complies to them has played a major role in bringing many species back from the brink of extinction to unimaginable numbers. As much as the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation has accomplished, we are positive our agency's best days are yet to come. You can see it on our faces. You can feel it with your hands. And you can hear it on the landscape. You'll find us working hard to make your state's natural resources the most healthy in the land.
We are. We are.
We are.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. Fishing, hunting, wildlife management, resource protection, habitat conservation, public outreach, and education.
It's what we do.
It's what we live for.
Simply put, conserving wildlife literally means the wise use of wildlife. And that's at the root of everything we do. Oklahoma is one of the most species-diverse states in the nation. Making sure opportunities exist for hunters, anglers, and all those who appreciate wildlife is not only our job.
It's our passion.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. From sunup to sundown, and sometimes all night long, the employees of our agency are relentless in their dedication to a job well done. The science behind wildlife conservation is constantly evolving, and our biologists are leading the way with groundbreaking and cutting-edge techniques that the entire scientific community benefits from. If that's not enough to make you proud, then consider this. We've been doing all this since our agency's birth in 1909, without using a dime of taxpayer money. That's because the Wildlife Department is designed as a user-pay, user-benefit agency. It's sportsmen and wildlife enthusiasts who pay the bill for wildlife conservation in Oklahoma. Revenue from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses make up the majority of the agency's budget. there's also another unique way that outdoorsmen contribute financially. Each time someone buys a gun, ammunition, fishing equipment, or fuel for their boat, a small portion of the tax they pay at the register is used for wildlife conservation. But hunters and anglers don't just contribute financially. A long time ago, we recognized that sportsmen are our most effective management tool. Shaping regulations and making sure everyone complies to them has played a major role in bringing many species back from the brink of extinction to unimaginable numbers. As much as the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation has accomplished, we are positive our agency's best days are yet to come. You can see it on our faces. You can feel it with your hands. And you can hear it on the landscape. You'll find us working hard to make your state's natural resources the most healthy in the land.
We are. We are.
We are.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. Fishing, hunting, wildlife management, resource protection, habitat conservation, public outreach, and education.
It's what we do.
It's what we live for.
Simply put, conserving wildlife literally means the wise use of wildlife. And that's at the root of everything we do. Oklahoma is one of the most species-diverse states in the nation. Making sure opportunities exist for hunters, anglers, and all those who appreciate wildlife is not only our job.
It's our passion.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. From sunup to sundown, and sometimes all night long, the employees of our agency are relentless in their dedication to a job well done. The science behind wildlife conservation is constantly evolving, and our biologists are leading the way with groundbreaking and cutting-edge techniques that the entire scientific community benefits from. If that's not enough to make you proud, then consider this. We've been doing all this since our agency's birth in 1909, without using a dime of taxpayer money. That's because the Wildlife Department is designed as a user-pay, user-benefit agency. It's sportsmen and wildlife enthusiasts who pay the bill for wildlife conservation in Oklahoma. Revenue from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses make up the majority of the agency's budget. There's also another unique way that outdoorsmen contribute financially. Each time someone buys a gun, ammunition, fishing equipment, or fuel for their boat, a small portion of the tax they pay at the register is used for wildlife conservation. But hunters and anglers don't just contribute financially. A long time ago, we recognized that sportsmen are our most effective management tool. shaping regulations and making sure everyone complies to them has played a major role in bringing many species back from the brink of extinction to unimaginable numbers. As much as the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation has accomplished, we are positive our agency's best days are yet to come. You can see it on our faces. You can feel it with your hands. And you can hear it on the landscape. You'll find us working hard to make your state's natural resources the most healthy in the land.
We are. We are.
We are.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. Fishing, hunting, wildlife management, resource protection, habitat conservation, public outreach, and education.
It's what we do.
It's what we live for.
Simply put, conserving wildlife literally means the wise use of wildlife. And that's at the root of everything we do. Oklahoma is one of the most species-diverse states in the nation. Making sure opportunities exist for hunters, anglers, and all those who appreciate wildlife is not only our job.
It's our passion.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. From sunup to sundown, and sometimes all night long, the employees of our agency are relentless in their dedication to a job well done. The science behind wildlife conservation is constantly evolving, and our biologists are leading the way with groundbreaking and cutting-edge techniques that the entire scientific community benefits from. If that's not enough to make you proud, then consider this. We've been doing all this since our agency's birth in 1909, without using a dime of taxpayer money. That's because the Wildlife Department is designed as a user-pay, user-benefit agency. It's sportsmen and wildlife enthusiasts who pay the bill for wildlife conservation in Oklahoma. Revenue from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses make up the majority of the agency's budget. There's also another unique way that outdoorsmen contribute financially. Each time someone buys a gun, ammunition, fishing equipment, or fuel for their boat, a small portion of the tax they pay at the register is used for wildlife conservation. But hunters and anglers don't just contribute financially. A long time ago, we recognized that sportsmen are our most effective management tool. Shaping regulations and making sure everyone complies to them has played a major role in bringing many species back from the brink of extinction to unimaginable numbers. As much as the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation has accomplished, we are positive our agency's best days are yet to come. You can see it on our faces. You can feel it with your hands. And you can hear it on the landscape. You'll find us working hard to make your state's natural resources the most healthy in the land.
We are. We are.
We are.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. Fishing, hunting, wildlife management, resource protection, habitat conservation, public outreach, and education.
It's what we do.
It's what we live for.
Simply put, conserving wildlife literally means the wise use of wildlife. And that's at the root of everything we do. Oklahoma is one of the most species-diverse states in the nation. Making sure opportunities exist for hunters, anglers, and all those who appreciate wildlife is not only our job.
It's our passion.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. From sunup to sundown, and sometimes all night long, the employees of our agency are relentless in their dedication to a job well done. The science behind wildlife conservation is constantly evolving, and our biologists are leading the way with groundbreaking and cutting-edge techniques that the entire scientific community benefits from. If that's not enough to make you proud, then consider this. We've been doing all this since our agency's birth in 1909, without using a dime of taxpayer money. That's because the Wildlife Department is designed as a user-pay, user-benefit agency. It's sportsmen and wildlife enthusiasts who pay the bill for wildlife conservation in Oklahoma. Revenue from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses make up the majority of the agency's budget. There's also another unique way that outdoorsmen contribute financially. Each time someone buys a gun, ammunition, fishing equipment, or fuel for their boat, a small portion of the tax they pay at the register is used for wildlife conservation. But hunters and anglers don't just contribute financially. A long time ago, we recognized that sportsmen are our most effective management tool. Shaping regulations and making sure everyone complies to them has played a major role in bringing many species back from the brink of extinction to unimaginable numbers. As much as the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation has accomplished, we are positive our agency's best days are yet to come. You can see it on our faces. You can feel it with your hands. And you can hear
Hey, all you outdoor Oklahoma lovers. I'm J.D. Strong, Director of Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. And on behalf of our 350 employees, we want to say thank you. In this unprecedented time, there's no question that there's been a lot that has confronted us as a society and as Oklahomans. But in the midst of those dark clouds, there's been a silver lining. People have been getting outdoors in droves. And because of that, we are able to see increased license sales, increased support for all things wildlife and fisheries conservation, and we're able to continue to host events like this state FFA shooting competition that we have going on behind us today. So without that support, without those license sales, we would not be able to put on stuff like this. If you didn't know it, we're a non-appropriated agency, so we get no help from the state legislature or taxpayers. So we depend heavily on those license sales as well as the sale of sporting equipment, guns, ammunition, fishing poles, bows and arrows, you name it. All of those purchases go towards us being able to get the next generation engaged in hunting and shooting sports, as well as other outdoor adventures, fishing, that sort of thing. So on behalf of the Department of Wildlife, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for bringing us this silver lining in the midst of all these dark clouds that we faced as a result of COVID. Get out there and continue to support wildlife conservation through the purchase of your hunting and fishing license. And don't forget, our outdoors are always open.